The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
Deep right, we got tanks up there. Let's follow a range on Detroit. I do have that on the target right now. I've got a couple of these right in front of me. I'm going after it. Right, I got him.
Welcome back to the Lead Pursuit Podcast. Tonight we're going to talk about the event where it all began. Yes, where it began for our lowly little podcast at Adepticon. We're joined tonight by Mike Rafferty, the historical czar, or coordinator for those of you not historically inclined, for Adepticon 2022. Mike, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Good to talk to you. Casey, you're also on joining us again. How's everything going out there in Texas? What is it, like a balmy 60 degrees, 70 degrees?
You're never going to believe this. It's actually post-apocalyptic weather. It froze. No snow yet like we had last year, so, it's not the end of the world, but it's pretty cold.
Is your power grid still up? Is the water main still working?
It's a little cold. It's kind of like a y'all's weather. But, it's like people say, like, oh, it's 20 degrees, that's shorts weather. My whole family, fire going, parkas.
Yeah, I'm not even going outside if I don't have to. I'm a wuss. But speaking of people who don't mind being out when it's cold and wet, Brett, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It's not cold here.
Yeah, exactly. It's not cold in Florida. Yeah, we don't care. Next. So moving on from Brett telling us it's not cold. Hey, let's talk about Adepticon. All right. So before we talk about actually the event, it's kind of one of my pet rocks, things that I like to find about weird crossovers or places where we as a gaming community align on things. Mike, before you get too far into telling us all the cool things that are going on with Adepticon 2022, we kind of want to know what's your gaming background. I mean, we don't necessarily need to know your chops. If you're a pure Napoleonics guy who really fits the definition of grognard, you don't need to tell us, but where did you get your start in gaming and what brought you to Adepticon?
Well, I comment on people's uniform colors and make sure they're precise.
See, I knew you were one of those.
No.
Casey, you guys can hang out and drink beer. I quit.
No, this is kind of funny. I was actually thinking about this. I actually started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in like 2003.
Oh, jeez. And you admit that publicly?
I'm willing to admit that I've played Yu-Gi-Oh! In the last year.
Wow. You are a brave man. Well, continue.
But kind of funny about that, my local game store, Toledo Game Room, I actually traded my Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck to buy a Space Marine army.
Well, that would be a worthy trade.
And so, obviously, like everyone in high school at that point, I went to 40K. Then I built a fantasy army. Then I went.
Then you felt you got left behind when everything went to AOS and they cut you off at the knees. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not bitter. No. I didn't have a fantasy army. I don't know why I always say that.
I'm pretty sure my buddy is still dealing with that. So
yeah.
I mean, he did have, when he sold it, 36,000 in fantasy armies.
Ouch.
So, yeah. I have one of the few remaining. I built it. He had it painted by GMM Studios, but it was a Dwarf Thoric army I took to my first Adepticon, which I want to say was 2009.
You might predate us by a few years. I guess Brett and I are youngins.
That army tore some stuff up. I think I finished second for best general that year, and that was my 10th game of fantasy. So
nice.
That's my fantasy experience of basically running a Napoleonic gun line.
Oh, jeez.
But, I've been playing Flames pretty heavy the last decade now.
Right.
I still have 40K. I mean, I'm looking around my room, and I have 40K, Titanicus, Aeronautica, Battletech, Pike and Shot, Flames, Team Yankee, all the stuff that is
because I don't feel so bad now having unpacked a lot of my game stuff, and Casey and Brett have been laughing at me as I send photo updates as each bin of this kind of wall of games keeps getting filled by a new game. I'm like, I do have a lot of games I haven't played in a long time. Might need to fix that.
Battles.
Okay, yeah, I unpacked literally a cube and a half of Starfleet battle stuff of all scales and counters and ships.
Nice.
So yeah,
they call my garage the room of requirement. So, but
yeah,
this is the stuff you can do when you're a single man in your 30s. So
yeah, nice. At least you have an excuse. I have no excuse for my pathetic game archive here, but that's all right. That's all right.
I say it fills the void in my life. So, But yeah,
Well, cool. So
I used to do a lot more
Sorry.
tournaments, and I've kind of moved more towards running games now. I actually really enjoy planning big games, running them. Having the narrative stuff to it is just a lot more interesting than playing in a tournament to me.
Yeah, and that's right where I sit and identify with that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm going to once again get suckered into running tournaments that I don't want to run, but that's my cross to bear for the Blood Red Skies community. But I
your
would,
sacrifice.
I would take narrative any day over competitive. But it's how I like to game. It's one of those things. So how did that then drag you into really getting to be part of the Adepticon staff?
My friends, so I live in the same area with Greg Sparks, who's sort of the operations manager for Adepticon. Kind of a man of many hats, but he handles a lot of stuff, and he's down the road from me. So myself, Dustin Birkenkamp, who's the vendor hall manager, we would always hang out and we call it the brain trust. But yeah, we'd have little Adepticon meetings, talk about stuff, and it just sort of evolved from there.
Nice.
And I've been running prize support the last, actually almost decade now, so.
Yeah, an unenviable field of endeavors.
Right.
Please, companies, give us stuff to give away. Yeah, no, that's one of those things that I think a lot of people forget. And I know in the last couple of years, there's been both a groundswell of support for the people that volunteer and that work on the staffs for events like Adepticon and a lot of the big gaming conventions. And there's also, as there always is on the internet, there's always bitterness and anger and vitriol slung everyone's way when an event either doesn't go or doesn't go the way people planned or some other decision is made. So hats off to you guys for putting on such an awesome event. I know Brett and I have never ceased to be amazed, both at the games that are being played and the wide variety of fine citizens that drapes through Adepticon. But it's always a good time. I mean, there's always so much to see, so much to do, more games to play than you have time for, even if you want to just get in quick demos. Brett, what are some of your best Adepticon kind of lessons learned? I'm going to put you on the spot before we talk about the ones we pre-briefed, but Brett, if you had to tell people, what's the one thing to not screw up at Adepticon?
Don't overbook. I would, you need some time to get to go to the vendor hall at least, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's probably the biggest lesson learned I have. And I know Mike and you and I talked about this, that literally leave yourself, if possible, an entire day or the equivalent of an entire day, like, cut out a morning here, an afternoon there, and an evening somewhere else, just to go and see. Don't overfill your schedule, right?
100%. It's, I've seen the people that they'll book the entire day, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. with tournaments. And, that's valid. If that's what you want to do, I'm not one to tell you not to have fun. I started phasing out that a little bit. And now, even now that I run games, obviously I'm not playing anything, but even the last couple of years, I haven't played in tournaments, I think 2016.
Wow. Well, talking about the overbooking, I know it was one of my frustrations this time because I've always really enjoyed being a part of the Horus Heresy 30K community and that group of people and some awesome people to game with and to just hang out with. And it's always been nice because in previous years, things were broken up into small, I'll call it digestible chunks. But this year, people organized it differently and they literally organized kind of full day events. And I looked at it, I'm like, man, I just can't do that. That's not how I want to experience Adepticon. I like being able to go in, play some games, get absolutely beat all around the table and tabled and, thrown out on my butt. And then, basically be able to go and do something else. So that's fine. People will make the schedules that support what they want to do. I just say that leave yourself some time if possible. Don't chock or block your schedule or you're going to regret it, or you're going to get really frustrated when your buddy says, hey, did you see game X? Or did you get to play a demo game of whatever? And you're like, no, man, I was in playing a tournament the whole time. Because I've been that guy and missed all the fun. So, Brett, you'll kind of laugh a little bit about this one because this was kind of our mantra playing Heresy last time. Take time to eat and hydrate. Beer does not count. Brett, I know we had a good time the last time we played there. playing a lot of Zone Mortalis. And thankfully, we had Chris there as the beer wench that was making all of our beer runs. How's that going to work out for our schedule this time?
Yeah, we haven't identified our beer wench for this trip, so we need.
I know it's if only we had someone who's new to the team.
Hey guys, look at the time. It's
and
pretty
was
late. I gotta go.
Junior. And was looking to be eager and an overachiever.
I feel like that's a rite of passage.
I think maybe it is. So Casey, Bell's Oberon, always a favorite.
Go ahead and start doing my deadlifts now, my curls. Get ready.
Yeah, exactly. You can never, it's kind of like, and I guess maybe you all were too disciplined to do it. You all probably never had kangaroo courts. So it's like never let the CEO's glass empty.
You know what's funny? You said that when my first time I went to Adepticon, it was like in the movies when you see like the small town kids show up in New York and their face are like jaw drops. Like that was how it was. And this guy rode by on a bicycle, like selling beer with like all these like Christmas lights.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever been to.
This is the best place ever.
Well, and that's the interesting part about the Marriott is when you walk into it, it's got such an impressive foyer with all the chandeliers and everything. It's a very impressive visual. And yeah, they were actually completely down for the beer cart idea. We came up with that one year, and it's been a really big success.
Well, that's the funny thing that it's going to be a learning event this year, and we'll talk a little bit about the split venue here in a few minutes. It's that funny moment that there's food everywhere, there's beer everywhere. Maybe your opponent hands you a flask of something or a beer out of a cooler. Not that that would ever happen at Adepticon.
No, never.
But that for us was part of the community. I know Brett and I always laugh about the hard drinking Horus Heresy community. Was that part of the problem was staying sober long enough to play the game. So I don't know how guys are going to do a full day tournament because being across the table from those guys for a full day, I would pass out at like 1 p.m.
You should go by 40K Friendly sometime. They know how to drink there.
Is that an oxymoron? Can you say 40K and friendly in the same sentence? Are you sure about that?
Somehow managed, but I will give them credit.
Is that fake news?
They do a good job of curating the lists.
Okay.
Sort of developing that. You have to submit ahead of time, and they will not allow a list if they feel it's unbalanced. It's designed. They don't even have individual scores. It's all team based.
Nice.
It's a lot of drinking. They have a very good time with that. I have a friend.
So
that
they
plays
won't
it.
allow a Warhound Titan standing on a Sky Shield pad. Yeah, we had that in 30K one year, and it won sadly.
I played 140 or 130K tournament, and
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. Well, it takes all kinds. I think we've talked about it before that 30K sometimes feels like the Grognard's version of 40K because it still has things that facing means something and vehicles feel like they aren't just boxes moving around out there that die quickly. But I'll be interested to see where the community and where the game goes in the next few years. I know there's a lot of rumors out there.
Yeah.
Brett, I know you want to always weigh in on 30K
Well,
stuff.
2019 was the first time I'd ever been to Adepticon, and I had never played a game of Heresy, and that was 2 days.
How had you hosted a BrettCon and never played a
No,
game of Heresy? Did
isn't
you
it?
just watch Chris and I smash each other's faces?
Yeah, I always
in the
played
dirt, I
40K
guess?
when we did that.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
true, I
so
guess.
anyway, my whole point with all that is 2 things that stand out to me in that trip was like 2 days of playing Horus Heresy. Never played before, had a blast, right? It was great fun, and it was a friendly event or whatever, right? It wasn't the actual tournament. It was the the Zone Mortalis event.
Yeah.
And so that was great. That was a really good introductory experience. And then also taking the time to go find a demo game. Well, a couple of demo games, because that's when we got our demo game for Blood Red Skies, and I got a demo game of...
Thanks. I had almost forgotten how we ended
that's how
up
that
here.
happened. And then I got a demo game of Oak and Iron, right, when it was still in... It wasn't even released yet. But all that's just to say that there are things out there that may be completely new to a gamer, because that's what happened for me, and I loved all of it. So make time to do all that too.
Well, and I think that's a perfect segue into the vendors, plug that I have for the vendor hall. It's kind of like Vegas. Set yourself a budget and know that you're going to blow it, but at least go through the exercise of setting yourself a budget. But take the time to walk around and don't just look for stuff for the game that you're playing. Take the time to go look at something, to ask the people about it, even to go ask other people that are, sitting there going through some of the demo games or whatever. Hey, how do you like this? What do you like about this game? I mean, that was one of the things that both nearly sold me on the Robotech miniatures game and also unsold me in that case on it, was that everybody's like, yeah, it's fun, I enjoy it. And then everybody who'd bought it was like, and the modelers are fucking fiddly. They will drive you crazy putting them together. So, to me, it's kind of the vendor hall is a overall experience. You don't want to go in there just shopping for that one miniature or that one vehicle or that one template, whatever that you need to fill out what you're going to get. But in my opinion, you kind of go in there and you absorb it all. And this is going to sound super, touchy-feely and all, but you also got to go in there and say, I might try a game that doesn't necessarily, seem like it's going to be fun, but it looks cool. But I like the miniatures, and I'm gonna take the time to let them demo the game to me, and then I might go, oh yeah, really cool miniatures, and that game hurt my brain to play. Which I don't think we ran into any of that at Adepticon. I seem to remember all the games we played were like, ooh, I need to buy more, and that's the danger of Adepticon.
I usually leave with at least one new game, so.
I had been so good until the last time we all gathered together for an Adepticon. And then obviously we fell horribly in the Blood Red Skies black hole. And, well, here we are a few years later. But I even use the example about go play a demo game and then go watch a narrative or friendly game, not necessarily a tournament. Watch how the crowds play. Because listeners on the podcast have heard us tell the story of, in a sense, we were auditioning games. And so we already had a huge Dust 1947 army. We watched those guys. Everybody seemed like a really cool dude or dudette that was playing, but they were also super quiet and not raucous like the Horus Heresy crowd. And then we said, wow, those Team Yankee miniatures look really cool. And then everyone over there was, as you and I have talked about, Mike, was a grognard pushing a tank block around the map. And we all looked at each other like, oh, hell no, we're not playing that game. And then we ran into a guy that bought us, pizza. And so all of a sudden we're hanging out with John Russell, who's a cool dude and playing Blood Red Skies. Well, and here we are again. So for us, it was try the game and try out the community. And see how you like playing with the people there at Adepticon. And I think it'll give you a good insight into, is it a game that you want to take back to your cadre of gamers, or is it something that you go, oh, what, miniatures look cool, let's find a different rule set. Team Yankee. But anyway, not that I'm going to beat up on Team Yankee tonight. Mike, what other lessons learned do you have, things to kind of offer to the listeners about if it's their first Adepticon or if they're even a returning Adepticon victim?
I think you kind of nail on the head. I like that idea of actually auditioning games, or as Brett puts it, speed dating with minis.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a great concept. And function, that's what you're doing. Is when you're at a con, the point is to try some new things. It's sort of, this is the environment to do that in. All the vendors are going to be there. They want to show off their wares, and you're going to get a good experience on what is this game like, what do the armies look like when they're painted. 'Cause you also have pretty nicely painted armies for demos, I would hope at least. And like you said, you can go see what the community's like. So I think that's a very important thing to consider. Check out something that you might not have wanted to play before, or just something different.
Right, absolutely. And, my problem is, even if I never sat at a demo game table, I would lose so much money in MDF terrain and acrylic tokens, templates. And I say this having just dropped an amount I will not share on Death Ray Design terrain, not to game with, but for my display case, I am ashamed to say. But literally, because I've every year I go over and, as we would say, I finger fuck all of their new terrain. And it's so wonderful. And it's so wonderfully painted.
They do very good stuff. And I mean, to join you, I just ordered $400 worth of foreground for my Team Yankee game.
Nice.
But I'm going to have electrical pylons.
Oh, jeez. You might have gone to a level of detail beyond what the average gamer is looking for, but that's okay. Because once again, part of Adepticon, I'll be honest, for me as a person who enjoys miniature gaming, I enjoy hex and counter gaming, I enjoy all kinds of different gaming for different reasons.
Sure.
Part of the reasons I consume miniature gaming is just the look of tables. And I don't play AOS, but I love walking past the AOS tables. I'm not going to play a 40K event at Adepticon, but I love looking at the armies and holding my nose.
Or going to the armies on display.
Yeah.
Or the armies on parade.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
It's fantastic. And that's something that's always appealed to me. Actually, I'll, to give Team Yankee and Flames a little bit of a nice shout out. Their tables look really good and very historical, and I love that look, and I strive to recreate that myself.
Yeah. Brett, I know you're just waiting to
I was
weigh
just
in.
thinking how much I was blown away by the amount of swag we got, right? And I didn't even get the VIG thing. I got the VIG thing in the year that we canceled, that it got shut down because of COVID. But
did you get it shipped to you?
No, I said keep it. So I did.
Well,
So I didn't take the stuff. I just said keep it all. But still, even the first time, 2019, without the VIG, it was still an amazing haul of stuff. And I was thinking this year, my son's 11. I'm really hopeful that the stuff I come home with will be more stuff that excites him maybe about gaming. I know that he still plays with some of the box games that I brought home. One of the games I got was some kind of alien game. Let me look behind me. Level 7 Invasion, right? I don't know the game. I haven't played it yet, but my son plays with those miniatures all the time and has like epic space battles on the floor with them.
I was over at my buddy's house when we were building our Necromunda gangs one night, and his son was playing with his Vansar game. So, it's lost all over the house, but he's a 4-year-old,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've never come out and away from that, whether I've had the VIG tag or not, and been like, oh, well, I didn't get any swag at this con. I literally am either giving stuff away, so Brett usually gets the stuff that I'm like, there's no way I'm going to play this. I'm just going to dump this on you, or it's stuff that I would give to Chris because I'm like, no, I just don't have room in my luggage for this stuff. So,
and I feel
I guess that's a lesson we should have talked about. Take an extra bag if you're flying. If you're not driving and don't have room in the car, take an extra bag. It's worth the $25 check bag fee.
It's definitely something to consider, and especially when you have like bits trading, you don't necessarily know what you're going to come home with.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, I never knew the dimensions of what I would come back with, because one year, everything reasonably packed down into my normal suitcase. I want to say it was, I don't remember if it was 2019 or if it was 2018, you guys literally gave away copies of Star Trek Ascendancy in the VIG. And I'm like, holy crap, I now have this huge boxed game that's like 2.5 feet by a foot. But yeah, I'm like, how am I supposed to get this home? And you cram it in your suitcase.
We stopped by,
on the
way to the airport, we stopped by a mail office and just mailed it back like in a box.
Yeah, well, and I think we did that one year. We just left stuff with Chris. And I'm like, Chris, dude, just ship this to me because I've got no room in my bags.
And that's a valid thing. We've had a lot of people do the shipping option. One year we gave out the Song of Ice and Fire starter.
Oh, yeah. Well, we gave, I think both Chris and I gave all of our Song of Ice and Fire to Brett, if I remember correctly.
No.
Brett. Is that how you ended up with so many more?
I kept one. I think Chris got a bunch of fire.
Oh, did Chris get the other two?
Remember, he went on a shopping spree for that game and bought tons of
that's
stuff.
right. He went on a shopping spree, so I gave him my starter, and then you had a starter yourself. Yeah, it was one of those, which I laughed that I didn't keep anything from that game. And like the next year I went to Malaysia, and at the game store I was at, that was literally one of their favorite things to play. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have
I was looking at the schedule. There's a how to play Fire and Ice, and
Well,
I was
there you
thinking, I should probably do that just because I have the starter set.
Because you actually have all the stuff. You should know how to use it. Nice work.
I backed the Kickstarter when it first happened, and then I bought a Baratheon army because I'm a Stannis loyalist. So, I've never played the game, but I have a bunch of it.
That sounds like a common problem. We're used to that on this podcast. Well, let's shift our discussion a little bit, because this year's going to be different with kind of a split venue. So we've got historicals over at the Hyatt. We've still got the main sci-fi fantasy or whatever blended family term you have for for things that don't exist over at the Renaissance still. But what is y'all's vision for how that's going to work out, obviously with the restrictions we have and with kind of the space and personnel restrictions?
The big thing is we've always had a bit of a space issue. You've seen how
say
tight
it isn't so. We're standing on top of each other to play games practically.
I guess it's a good problem to have because it means your con is popular. People want to set up and tournaments sell out. It's a good thing.
And people bring great terrain when Space Hulk literally takes up half of the hallway upstairs outside of all the Batman and Gotham and or superhero games. Yeah, when that's a problem that's enviable,
Well, and then you look at, like, speaking of that, the Batman terrain is fantastic. But, and you have new games coming out every year. Since Adepticon Legion has gotten to be big,
Yep.
X-Wing's still huge, Armada's still huge. Atomic Mass Games is Marvel Crisis Protocol.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you look at that as there's 3 new games that we need tables for with probably no reduction in the other games. Plus 40K can always expand, Age of Sigmar. It gets really challenging. So the question becomes, well, do we want to cut down on something else or do we want to expand? And going up to the larger size venues is a challenge.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other problem that you're going to run into at any one of these is as you shift where you've been, what people are comfortable with, there's always a potential to lose part of your crowd. And that's even kind of my concern as we're going to the historical being over at the Hyatt is just because it's different, that's enough of a reason for people to go, oh, I don't want to do it. Dude, it's still the same great games, same company, same people are running things. Mm-hmm. It's just a little bit different venue and location. And quite frankly, I can't speak for all the other gamers. I kind of felt like Brett and Chris and I were a little bit of an anomaly in that we really enjoyed moving freely from community to community. And while we made fun of the X-Wing guys, we enjoyed walking around and looking at the X-Wing and the Armada tables. And while we made fun of the 40K crowd, we absolutely sat there and talked to some people with their awesome armies and watched people play games. So we were happy to move between groups, and we weren't sure if that was us being weird or if actually a lot of people did that.
I like doing it too, and talking to some of the vendors, they like being able to target different audiences for their products. I mean, some of my best friends are 40K gamers. It's a bit of a disability, but it happens.
Don't admit it in public. We don't talk to those people.
Hey, I can make fun of
we
them.
We don't make eye contact with them.
But there are drawbacks. No one's going to say it's not a perfect solution. The best solution would be they could just double the convention center on top of each other. We could all just stay at the Marriott. But
yeah, exactly. But that's not going to happen.
And if you look at it, we've always had satellite hotels.
Right.
People stay off-site. The Marriott sells out in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I've never stayed on site. We've always stayed at, one, because I'm a Hilton points dude, but we've always stayed at a Hilton property within a quick drive. And it gives us some flexibility. Always means it sucks because you're looking for parking, but at least we eat breakfast where we want. We do what we want first thing in the morning and late in the evening. But yeah, I think Adepticon is one of those big enough conventions that people are going to stay off-site. There's always an off-site element to it. Mm-hmm. I think maybe people are putting, they're putting too much emotion into it and going, oh my God, it's going to totally ruin everything. No, it's not. It's going to require some coordination and planning. But
in Adepticon 2019, we had Keyforge off-site.
Right.
And it worked fine.
That's true. I forgot. Yeah. Forgot about that. Well, tell us what the transportation plan as you know it. And I guess this is where I should make the disclaimer again that anything we say tonight could change between now and game day. So
it is January. A lot of stuff is in flux just because of the situation.
Yeah.
But
things are constantly moving and changing. This is what we think is going to happen. Tell us how you think the transportation might go.
So we are going to have shuttles going between. It's about a 5-minute drive. There's basically a gigantic mall in between our 2 venues, which on one hand does often offer up a lot of food options. But at the same time, it is a quick drive. I know parking at the Marriott's not the greatest, and that's why we're going to have the shuttle. To me, I look at it as it's a good thing because you can park your car at the Hyatt, which has a ton of parking, hop in the shuttle, go over there. You're
going to laugh. That was my takeaway from it, being that we're obviously kind of grounded in the historical piece, but I'm definitely going to want to go over and participate in other stuff. My laugh was, okay, the Hyatt is just exactly the same distance down the street from where I'm staying. Looks like it has more parking, and I'll just catch the shuttle, and then we won't be making the circuit, being the vultures waiting for somebody to leave their spot, over at the Renaissance, which has always been kind of our the weak link of our gaming plan.
Agreed. And I'm trying to figure out some options if I have to jump back and forth, and it might just be hop on the shuttle,
A driver. Casey, you're up. Kiss his butt. Get a special handling.
Luckily, I live in Toledo, so I drive up to All
right. All right, well, let's talk about the Hyatt itself. Tell me what you think of that as a venue, especially for historicals and for the kind of things that gamers are going to care about.
It's so kind of funny story is I've been out there a grand total of one time. We were supposed to go out there last weekend, but due to the weather, they canceled the on-site meeting. So I did end up not going out.
Weather, snow, ice, whatever.
That's what I said, but I also wasn't driving, so.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like, so when we first pulled up, it was like, it's just like this concrete building, and we're like, oh man, this is not looking good. And then you walk in, and the foyer is absolutely beautiful. There is so much space in this venue. I would say we're looking around 40,000 square feet.
Nice. That's
Multiple
more than
halls.
anyone should know.
The food options look fantastic. The bar is actually bigger than the Marriott's.
Well, so, and I don't know who wordsmithed the on-site review when some of y'all's team went over and looked at the Hyatt.
Yeah.
Previously, it was hilarious for me to sit there and read it because it was obvious that walking in the door, everyone was not expecting it to be as nice as it was. And that everybody's like, wow, there's a lot of things that actually it offers more things that we need.
It really does. And that my friend Don wrote that, and he's my second for historicals, or commissar, as he branded himself. So, yeah, he went out there on the trip, and the rooms are fantastic.
Nice.
They are as good as the Marriott. I would put them as equivalent, maybe even a little bit nicer. I don't know. I might be a little bit biased on that front. Usable space-wise is fantastic. The staff there has been incredibly accommodating, which is, obviously when we're trying to plan these events, very nice.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
They work with us. We got a lot of tables set up. We have multiple ballrooms. We're still going to work out the actual spacing for everything. But the nice thing is we have plenty of room to run our events. And a lot of historical games don't use, if you're running an event game, you're not necessarily using the standard 6x4 table. You might.
As we know, it varies and it becomes table creep. I'll call it, kind of like mission creep.
Exactly, and I mean the game I'm planning. We've been talking U shapes, T shapes, all this kind of stuff. At the main site or the Marriott, you really couldn't do that.
Right.
Here,
yeah, you were very constrained in the layout there.
We have incredible flexibility on what we want to do. If you want to run a game that's got a unique table shape, we can accommodate.
Nice. Well, that'll be good. And I think that comes up a lot for historical. I mean, obviously for things like 40K, when you're playing at the super large, the Titan level, stuff like that, sometimes becomes cool because then you can do apocalyptic scale games. But at the same time, most games don't need something unique. However, it seems like everybody who's doing Civil War, Napoleonics, the Battle of bombing Ploesti in World War II, everybody wants to do some bizarrely shaped table or configuration thereof. But let's be honest, having those kind of games, the stuff you're not going to set up at your buddy's basement, those are kind of why we go to conventions. And to go play in a big game like that,
exactly.
That's kind of part of the fun. Well, I mean, Casey, you and I have kind of seen it doing Blood Red Skies kind of games where it's not a conventional table setup. I mean, you saw it at TLC when we did the sinking of the Hornet kind of thing, where you've got people from all different sides all huddled around the table, chasing around the table, and it's not necessarily a you versus me kind of table setup. When your table's dominated by a 1/200th scale Hornet, so it makes for a fun setup, I think.
Well, you just have these large games that, like you said, they just bring in. I sent so many pictures to our gaming group because none of them had gone before. There was a Battle of Hoth game that took up just multiple tables. These guys had huge AT-ATs, and it was something that I would never be interested in playing, and we were all over that thing. And I mean, there were dozens of games like that.
Well, and that goes back to kind of the point of make the time to go try something, do something, think something you're never going to buy the models for and set up in your buddy's basement. But if the models are there and provided, and it's just learn a quick game, a lot of people jump in on it. I know that was Steve's experience at Historicon. getting to play a lot of aerial games that he knew nothing of the rules, didn't have to bring a single miniature, and they walked him through everything, and all of a sudden he's playing Aerodrome, and having a good time.
Oh, I love Aerodrome.
I still haven't played it. I've been trying to, and we've wanted to talk about it in the podcast, and we just never made the stars align. So maybe if I can partition my gaming time as it should be, then I'll be able to do that and get some Aerodrome time in.
But back to your point, I agree. Like, I have a standard when I'm running my games is I want it to an Adepticon standard, which means that
Right.
the terrain is well done, everything is built up, and I'm putting on the best possible game that I can that beyond being fun, looks visually impressive.
Absolutely. Well, so let's talk about people we can throw our money at. Vendors. What do we think the vendor plan is between historical and sci-fi, and especially for companies that might cross over, like Warlord, who obviously has the Blood Red Skies license, but has Warlords of Erewhon, a lot of other things that cross into the fantasy and sci-fi, like Gates of Antares. I think people still play. I think.
No, they post about it on their page.
Yeah, exactly. They paint miniatures for it. I love they play it.
Yeah. So obviously, Warlord's going to be there. They'll have their full booth. Battlefront will be back there again. Wing to Star Publishing. Vince is always there, and he's a great guy and makes some very interesting books. I want to say he's partnered up with the Fire and Sword people, which is an interesting, like 17th century post 30 Years War kind of pike and shot game
Okay.
that I bought into last Adepticon because they gave me a great demo and haven't touched the models since then.
Nice.
Actually, ironically, I bought that for the first time in the Czech Republic at the 40K European Team Championship. That I wasn't at. I was just supporting friends that were there.
Right,
You know,
right.
drinking, and we bought all their Jaeger.
Supporting by getting shit-faced, so don't ask me how that works. But
We bought all their Jaeger.
yeah, that's excellent. That's a horrible problem. Yeah, exactly. Cases like, oh my god, you
I
actually
can't
drink that
I
shit.
cannot drink that anymore. I will throw up immediately.
I smelled that as soon as you said it.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone who's
kept-
had as much of it is like, oh god.
I kept referring to their currency as fun bucks.
No wonder you have no friends in that country anymore.
Yeah.
So is that mostly going to be vendors? So back to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Vendors. Is that mostly going to be historical vendors at the historical section, sci-fi, fantasy over at sci-fi, or is it going to be one central vendor hall? How is that all going to break?
As it stands right now, it's going to be the vendor hall at the Marriott. So everyone that was there pretty much is coming back outside of, sadly, the couple companies that went out of business. Reaper will be there. I think Mantic is setting up. Don't quote me on that. But, the normal people that you're used to seeing will be there.
Right.
Now, the flip side is I have been wanting to have some vendors at the Hyatt. And it's something, we've been in talks with a few. And, preliminary things could change. But we should have 2 to 3 vendors there this year.
Nice.
And they will be historically themed.
Good. Well, I think that's a compromise people are just going to have to figure out. It goes back into planning your Adepticon schedule. Is that you realize to make your vendor run, you may need to go back to the main venue, and that's fine because that's why I always carve out a lot of time for the vendor hall. Just people need to be flexible, and I think at least based on my experience, if you know you're going to spend time in the vendor hall, you're cutting out quite a few hours to go through. So it's not a quick swipe through and run through. It tends to be a pretty
absolutely.
big event. Okay,
And-
well, let's talk. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and the nice thing is, obviously, you can, maybe avoid the initial rush on Thursday, pop by whenever. It's, even if you're playing, the 3 Battlefront tournaments, if you come up Thursday, you have all day Thursday to do something, then play tournaments Friday,
Right.
Saturday, Sunday.
And even if you're waiting for your Space Marines and the line at Forge World, yeah, then you can
Forge World will be back to Games Workshop.
carve out your time there to wait in that line with the rest of the.
No, so you got to be smart and do the mail order where you can just pick it up at the con.
Exactly. So I still laugh about that because literally it's like people don't know that it works that way and they're standing in line. And I'll be honest, there has been nothing that Forge World has had that has been an impulse buy for me at Adepticon. Everything I'm like, yeah, I should have ordered if I want it. Otherwise, I'll worry about it later.
We'll not talk about the first year when I decided I was getting to Heresy and spent way too much money at the Forge World booth on impulse.
Nope, I just did all that by mail order previously. And then
Instead
waited
of
for
buying it
plastic
at
kits to
$1
come out.
grand,
Yeah, exactly.
which I should have bought instead. But
That's a much wiser investment in your money, which is sad that I just said that. But anyway, okay, so let's talk events. Let's talk a couple specific events that we know are going to happen, because once again, the events page link, we'll put it in the notes for the podcast. It's a constant moving target. Things are out there. Take a look at it up until, when tickets go on sale on the 11th of January, theoretically. Yep. And there may be changes afterwards. There may be late breakers that populate in there. So I tell people, take a look at it, but take it with a grain of salt. And as always, most everybody who's run events at Adepticon that I've talked to has been so good about this, that if they don't have a waiting list, they usually have a contact email or something on there, and you can say, hey guys, I missed the initial bid. What's the deal? And most people are like, dude, bring your stuff, bring your miniatures, show up, and someone probably won't play. So I tell people, sign up for what you can, but don't be brokenhearted if you miss out on stuff selling out, because it will. And the event you want to do will get full fast. But you have a unique event being run. You've got a custom Team Yankee game that you're doing. So tell us about that.
I don't have a problem. Let's just start with that.
Lying about it is not one of the 12 steps.
He just did the first step. He already admitted it.
He did. He denied. Then he's going to blame the game producer. He's going to blame them for the fine miniatures they make.
I mean, Battlefront does make a pretty fine miniature, so.
Exactly.
But a couple of years ago, back prior to Adepticon 2020, my buddies and I were talking of, hey, why don't we run a Market Garden game set in Team Yankee? Because, Market Garden is probably my favorite single of operation of World War II, and it might just be because I love A Bridge Too Far. It's that classic, Forlorn Hope, really ambitious operation that just didn't pan out. So I thought, hey, why don't we do this in the Cold War? That game has expanded over the past 2 years. We were initially like, oh, okay, we'll get a Soviet tank regiment together. That'll look really cool.
Oh,
and
geez.
To let you guys know, a Soviet tank regiment is 93 tanks plus support options.
I was going to say, plus all the support vehicles.
Yeah. I will say,
I am
not
their logistics
one-to-one.
train is huge.
I am not one-to-one on all support vehicles, mostly because I wasn't buying 18 self-propelled guns.
Yes.
Yeah, that's now expanded to, I want to say at this point, we have close to 2 to 2.5 Soviet tank regiments. I have a battalion of chieftains for the British. We have a French tank company, an American armored cav squadron, a German tank company, German Panzer Grenadiers, Canadians. We almost had Australians, but my buddy kept making fun of me every time I mentioned Australians in Holland.
Well, you see. Well, actually.
It's a train
Yeah, they're
exercise.
exercises.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Then I kept joking about bringing Israelis just to annoy him.
Exactly. We're going to make this totally ahistorical just to piss you off.
Initially, we were kind of hoping, it'll be like 200-300 vehicles. We're solidly over 500 at this point.
So that's what, 1 4x6 table in Team Yankee? Oh, sorry, too soon.
It's going to be in a formation, everyone bumper to bumper.
You're
Yeah,
going to do it in the
exactly.
hotel parking lot to really put it on the nose.
Yeah. Everyone has to be within 1 inch coherency. Oh, sorry. Too
No,
soon.
but I don't know how many tables yet. We haven't exactly mapped it out.
Right.
But I have it registered as a 20-person event.
Nice.
And realistically, I could have went to 30. But I was like, okay, we're already pushing it at 20, I feel.
Right.
So we're going to have it spaced out. That's why I was just telling you earlier, I ordered a bunch more terrain from Foreground. And I have probably a good solid $1,000 worth of terrain from Battlefront, not to mention other manufacturers. So I have to build Nijmegen
So at least it's
and
going to
Arnhem.
look good.
It will look fantastic. Because I figure I got to build Nijmegen, I have to build Arnhem, and then areas around.
Nice. Well, no, that'll be cool. That will be super interesting to see. So we're looking forward to seeing that. I mean, I'll be honest, we make fun of Team Yankee for a variety of reasons. Part of that being, like you and I have discussed, that people love to play the tank park,
Sure.
and that just isn't the way we see things going down. But I have a lot of the miniatures, more than I'd like to admit. That's all Matt's fault for selling those to me, so he could get rid of all of his Soviet stuff. But we
I
definitely
keep
need to
buying
start building
lots
and playing.
that show up on the Facebook buy-sell groups.
Oh god, that's me with Rogue Trader stuff. So thankfully I've stopped that for a while.
You know what?
so.
There was a while there, my buddy was like, every day you text me of, I just bought this. It was a great deal.
Battlefront.
Yeah,
had
exactly.
The year I went to Adepticon, Battlefront had one of the coolest booths too. I swear this thing was like 40 yards long, and it had anything you could ever imagine in there. And I remember I kept like going back and back, like, do I really need this Market Garden, this Fortress Europe book? I was like, well, why not?
Yes, you do.
Well, and John Matthews, the guy that runs Battlefront US, he's a great guy. I mean, he's a delight to talk to, and I mean, he's definitely encouraged me to scale up my games a little bit.
Here, spend some money. Feel free. Let me make it easy on you.
And I will say, they've been very generous helping out with terrain and stuff too. So I do appreciate them a lot.
Well, and that's what my feeling is. Most of the companies have been such good stewards of events like Adepticon that
Yes.
they've really tried to take care of the people that are organizing those games. John Russell, that means I need a lot of terrain for Blood Red Skies. Oh, wait, Blood Red Skies
Yes.
doesn't have terrain.
John
Shit.
Russell's is a great guy. My address is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I have to laugh because once again, John, driving to most of his events, I think when someone made the comment of, why don't you fly to Adepticon? I'm like, no, John cannot fly. I need the Hornet to make it. And he can't fly with that big of a piece of gear. So we'll see.
He brought that for you?
So he has brought that to several of the conventions that he's supported that we've been at. So we obviously it's easy for him at Twisted Lords because he's right there in Oklahoma City. It's his convention.
Sure.
But he's brought it all the way out to New Orleans for Gathering of Eagles and drug it out to several other events.
And they're bringing it to Adepticon, right?
Yes, I am doing my damnedest to make sure because that's one of the events. It's another Sink the Carrier event. So.
That just sounds cool.
He's hopefully bringing that and all those miniatures.
And talking about, I don't mean to change the subject, but talking about events, looking at the event list, I was really impressed with the variety of historical events you had. Besides the Flames of War, the Bolt Action, like it was cool to see 4 different Chain of Command games. Because, there's a lot of people out there who, they may, Bolt Action's okay, but they love Chain of Command, or vice versa, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool to see, like, it growing historical-wise, just those different games and the variety of them there.
And I actually kind of an interesting story about them is that I want to say that the group is Lard America.
Yeah, that's them.
I actually met them at Historicon.
Oh, nice.
And I played in a General D'Armée game they were running, and their boards were amazing. Like, just beautiful games and boards. And I got talking with them, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're from Chicago. And I was like, why don't you come out to Adepticon? And they signed up for some games.
Nice thing about the split venue is now we have more space. We can do those things, and we don't feel like we're stealing tables or stuff from any one of the other game companies. Because I know even on Warlord's side, as much as John does his level best to always promise us the world, as much as we wanted his lead pursuit to do for Blood Red Skies, he had looked at us and go, you ain't competing with Bolt Action. I'm like, damn it, all right. Can't do things at the same time as Bolt Action. But now having a separate venue, not necessarily fighting for the same Warlord tables, makes things a little bit easier to set up and to do.
It really does. And that's something else I've been trying to do as historical emperor, czar, coordinator, whatever. I've been trying
Just don't send Brett to the gulag, please. Oh, wait, sorry.
We might have one set up. We're talking.
Oh, excellent.
But I've been trying to reach out to more GMs. That was part of the reason I went to Historicon, besides the fact I wanted to go to Historicon.
Right.
If I can find an excuse to myself.
It's a good reason to go. You're supporting the team by going.
I need our 10 T-64s to round out the battalion.
Yeah, exactly.
But realistically, I want to make contact with more people. That's where I met Mitch Reed, who's a fantastic guy.
No, he's not. He's an absolute douche nozzle.
Hey, I have to speak highly of people.
Mitch is an awesome dude. So, no, we love Mitch on the podcast.
Yeah,
he's
and
a
he
good
has
friend.
been
He's
incredibly helpful talking to him, and he's going to be helping run the Firelock games, which just got...
Right.
They're doing an Iron Man again like they did at Historicon, 3 events, and you get an award for playing in all 3 of them.
Nice.
Which I think is fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, that is cool.
I met these Lord America guys. I met Jason from Military Miniatures.
Right.
So, I'm making contacts, and that's part of what I want to do is I feel like historical gaming is very fractured.
Well, it is. And we talked to Jason a couple weeks ago about just the status of the U.S. historical gaming industry and where it is, and it's so people are so stovepiped. And I'll be the first to admit it's just like me saying I don't want to play Napoleonics. I don't want to play Napoleonics, but as a result, it means I don't move in certain circles, and so I don't know what's going on, and so I miss certain things just because I don't play in those games. Whereas sometimes it seems, at least in the sci-fi genre, people are playing across the boundaries a little bit more. But it is one of those challenges we have in historical gaming with the demographic and the dynamic that we have in the United States. So I think it'll be good, especially for this, to have broken out a number of guys or a number of tables and things that probably would have been lost in the noise had we been in a single venue.
Exactly. It's something we can very much highlight,
Right.
definitely. And that's if you've noticed on the Facebook page, I've been going through posting event previews, and I open that to any GM. Send me an
Which has
event
been
preview
awesome
and I'll
because for
post it.
once someone actually gave a shit what Blood Red Skies was doing. So thank you for posting about us. I laughed. I'm like, wow, for once we're actually on the main headliner. And
I mean,
have to pay
it's
anyone
my
to do that.
event, so I gotta
Exactly.
prop my thing. But it's one of those. I think everyone, we're coming off of COVID. We don't know how much has changed.
Right.
Everyone needs a shout out.
Oh yeah, and we appreciate it. So you guys have been super easy to work with. So let's do some shameless plugs here for Lead Pursuit for our
Okay.
games. We know that we're doing midway battles on Friday and Sunday. So they're set right now for people that have not been to a GOE or have not been to Twisted Lords. They are set as large introductory games. You don't have to know a damn thing about playing Blood Red Skies. I'll get up, I'll give you my 10-minute spiel, we'll move some miniatures around, and we'll have people there to kind of mother you through. So the Blood Red Skies community has always been good about having experienced gamers show up to play those games, so we'll kind of pair people off. If there's an experienced gamer, we'll let them honcho all the Kate torpedo bombers attacking, or let them kind of work with the guys playing the Zeros, and we'll assign them a couple other players, give each of those players aircraft, and let them kind of husband people through the game. But the intent is to once again have a big game, and not that I'm happy that I still have the reigning number because Casey didn't beat me on a single table. You failed, Casey.
So close.
So close. But as usual, we're going to try to set up a big event. We're hoping to have, obviously, John Russell's Hornet there as the target for the carrier battle. For the midway dogfight battles, we've got a lot of other stuff. But we're looking
Wait, that
to
doesn't make sense. Hornet was sunk at Santa Cruz.
yeah, well, exactly. But we do our sink the Hornet routine and try to get everyone to get in there and get enough torpedo shots. And
I got my Bachelor of Histories. I'm allowed to be a little pedantic now.
Well, exactly. No, yeah. Now you can make sure to keep us on. But it's funny because we get in there and especially with the Sink the Hornet one, normally the torpedo bombers just fail miserably, and it's always just a pure kind of odds thing that there aren't enough players to play both fighters and a absolute swarm of torpedo bombers. Most people want to play fighters. Nobody wants to get stuck with the fat, ugly torpedo bombers. And so by the time they make it to the target, there just aren't enough of them, odds-wise, to sink it, except for the last time we played. So, last time we played, they absolutely sank the Hornet. I'm like, wait, that's not supposed to happen. But it's one of those things,
No, it's a challenge sometimes to do that. My friends were trying to make a midway campaign for the new Warlord Victory at Sea version.
Right.
And we've been trying to test the airplane rules, and it's really rough to figure out the scale of what works but doesn't get destroyed by AA but actually looks appropriate.
Exactly. And we've had that discussion a couple times about Victory at Sea specifically, that it's tough. It's a game that feels right when you're playing battleship combat,
Yes.
but it's just weird as soon as you put carriers on the table. It just messes with the scale and just doesn't, the feel is somehow not there. I don't know. I'm not a Victory at Sea player. I have enough games as it is.
I have every major fleet for World War II and 12400.
Casey, it sounds like you have another friend with the same problem.
We have some chatting to do, sir.
I love Victory at Sea. The one thing, and I agree with what you were saying, it's nice to have a rule set that I can give you a 10-minute intro and you can start playing. Like, I love your whole
Absolutely.
concept for how you're doing Blood Red Skies, and I think that's how you get people into historical gaming.
Oh, yeah. I think one of the things that we've at least seen is there's so much to be said for having a good gaming community at the demo game. It's one thing to do a cool one-on-one. Somebody walks by the vendor booth, says, "Hey, I'd like to play game X." Vendor says, "Okay, let me show you how to play game X." That's always cool. But when you sit there and you play with other people, and what we also found was cool is a lot of times we would get groups where like 4 people would come up and go, "Hey, we want to learn to play Blood Red Skies." We're like, that's awesome, because that way at least you automatically have a gaming community to start with. That just changes the dynamic of it.
It absolutely does. I ran a pike and shot game set during the English Civil War, Adepticon 2018, and I had a group of 5 people show up, and they were an absolute blast.
Yeah.
We're drinking, having fun, and it was a good time.
Yeah, as it should be at Adepticon. Much alcohol consumption with the dice rolling. Well, so the other thing we're going to do is Saturday, yes, there will be a Blood Red Skies tournament, much to my chagrin. And I think it'll probably be me running it, unless I can sucker Steve into it. But it'll be same standard U.S. format tournament. We won't change anything up yet. I do want to inform everyone that after Adepticon, all bets are off. That's when we take a really tough look at how tournament is done in the U.S., and we may change up the tournament rules for the remainder of 22. But that will kind of be the capstone. It'll be the last tournament event underneath this last year's series of rules. Any aircraft out of the World War II master aircraft list, 500 points. All the other standard caveats. But basically bring your best airplane squadron 3 rounds and beat the crap out of everyone else at the table. Then go drink beers. So that, I think, is going to be fun. But I think the thing that I want to make sure that American players who are going to be there understand is we've had a lot of fun playing this, as we call it, the U.S. format tournaments over the last year, almost year and a half. We're going to expand. We know we're going to change how the tournament rules are set up. So there's going to be some other scenarios in there. We're going to change the number of rounds. We're going to do some other cool things. We're not going to let this get stale. But we wanted to kind of have a season closer, because we felt like we didn't this year in 2021. We didn't really have a final event to cap out the year. So Adepticon in March is going to kind of cap out the 2021-22 tournament year, and then we'll start over and start some new stuff. So we'll see where that goes, and hopefully we'll get some more feedback, because it seems like everyone's enjoyed Dogfight as a scenario. Scenario 1's fun. It's predictable. It's fairly canned. But we'd love to make the game harder on the aerial commanders. Play Scenario 2, play Scenario 3, and some of these other ones. So we'll see where that all goes.
Well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's important to evolve your tournament to keep it from getting stale.
Absolutely. And I've said this a number of times, and I've basically had to eat my own words, is our intent was not to make a tournament that was a different game than Blood Red Skies. But I feel that in some ways we have, because we've brought the entire master aircraft list in and things like that. But man, it has been really cool to see what people paint up and bring to a tournament, and the level of involvement, even in a small game like Blood Red Skies, where you may only need 5 or 6 or 7 airplanes in your list, your 500-point list. When people go out and you go, you know what, I'm going to try a different airplane. I'm going to go buy it from Armaments and Miniature, or I'm going to go get someone with a 3D printer to print me up these models. We're going to go out there with an unusual force, and that's exciting to me, because then it's not just the same kind of canned armies. And no, Brett, I'm not going to allow you to bring King Cobras, because your 3D printed P-39s are not going to be a suitable substitute. You need real P-63s.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to bring King Cobra, you bring King Cobra.
Exactly. Come on, Brett.
Hey, the Russians loved them.
Yeah, well, and it's a beautiful airplane and absolutely deadly. Brett, what do you are you going to play in the tournament this year? Are you gonna sit it out and let somebody else take the crown, or what's the deal?
I mean, I always enjoy playing, but I know if it gets big, we need help making things happen. So I'm flexible.
Okay. I just think we need to make sure we get Brett back in for another round, at least to try it. Casey, you think you're going to play? You think you're going to sit on the side and help?
Oh, I'll probably try to help out, and then bring a beer or two,
you're
throw
just
some
such a
dice,
wuss.
disappear when I see
Exactly.
something shiny in the corner that I want to play, come back, throw my dice, drink another beer, rinse, repeat.
Well, so the thing that I guess we have to say is we know that not everyone can get into the tournaments, and not everyone can fit it either into their schedule nor do they really want to play a super competitive 3 rounds. That they still want to come and throw dice, and so we absolutely are going to make some time for grudge matches. I don't know how we're going to coordinate table space with Mike. We'll figure this out. But if people want to call out other members of the community, much as Steve and I did for each other before Siege of Vicksburg, if you want a grudge match, we'll make it happen. We'll figure out.
I've seen a lot of fantasy tournaments. What they would do is round 1, you could call out your opponent and sort of like select your round 1 opponent.
Oh yeah. And
I think it's a great idea.
It is. It's a lot of fun. What we did, and we took ours a little bit to the extreme because we had the time at Siege of Vicksburg, is we actually played a standard best 2 out of 3 between Steve and I because we had that ability. And we'd been talking about some specific rules things, some specific list building. So it became I'm going to make you put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. But I think that's always been the good part of the Blood Red Skies community is there's a level of respect amongst all the players that we're happy to do that. We're happy to call somebody out and go, okay, you've been running your mouth about your swarm list. I'm going to absolutely eat your lunch with a 4-ace list, which probably isn't going to happen. You'll lose horribly to a swarm. But that's the thing that we enjoy. So if people want to do that, we'll figure out the table space. We'll figure out how to do that. I'm sure there'll be plenty of open gaming tables that Mike and the team will have figured out for us. So worst case, we'll be playing on the floor.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of floor space.
It's always floor space. We're good. Throw out a mat. We'll be set.
No, we'll figure something out with that. And I'm looking forward to you running me through Blood Red Skies too. It's
a fun game. You and I have talked about it. It's one of those things that it's quick and easy to learn. The problem is it does become a slippery slope because you keep telling yourself, oh, it's just one more little squadron box. It's just $42. And so instead of spending all the money up front like $40K or AOS, you spend it incrementally and you end up with the same army. But
it is nice though to be able to spread it out. Like I've been doing that with Aeronautica, which I just jumped into.
Oh God, you had to mention Aeronautica. Hey Casey, what about
Speaking
Aeronautica?
of that,
Speaking of Aeronautica, Casey, are we playing Aeronautica?
I mean, do the people want it? Do they want a fun narrative?
It depends. Well,
Aeronautica
I don't know.
event?
So already, Facebook isn't exactly the harbinger of all truth, but the comment was made in one of the Aeronautica groups. Hey man, where's the Aeronautica event at Adepticon? And I let that kind of stew for 24 hours. I'm like, well, if ain't nobody going to jump up and volunteer, we'll run one. I know Casey and I have talked about and started working with some other guys to run an event in early March and more to follow on that. But I'm happy for Elite Pursuit to put together a fun narrative kind of event. I'm not looking to make a super competitive Aeronautica face-smashing tournament, but we'll take our lessons learned from our early March event and apply it towards some cool stuff with a cool mission and maybe some cool terrain and targets to do for Aeronautica. But I do have to say this. It will definitely be a bring your own army. It will not be armies are provided by Doug and Casey.
I think it's just the natural evolution with us being such like 40K fans and then, aerial warfare, aerial games fans. It's kind of we're going to meet in the middle. This will work.
Well, I even dug out my old first gen Aeronautica book the other day as I pulled some of my Games Workshop stuff out of storage, and just the lore and all the air-to-air piece is still so cool to me. I'm enjoying playing it. So Matt and I have played a game here in Huntsville. I mean, why did he have to go and, actually he and his wife have a baby because now it's taking all of his gaming time. So I guess I have to find myself another Aeronautica opponent in Huntsville. Thankfully, there's a couple guys. But I enjoy the game. Is it Blood Red Skies? No, it's not. Does it have some similarities? Absolutely. And barring me being a rules idiot, it actually plays fairly quickly, I think. So I think, while once again, disclaimer is that nothing is written in stone yet, I think Lead Pursuit is going to at least approach the Adepticon team and go, hey guys, we'd like to help out, like to do a quick narrative game, maybe Saturday evening, whenever Adepticon has time and can fit it in the schedule. We'll definitely do something fun, and fun being the key word. And we need to make that
That's
clear.
the most important thing. And I've been looking at my games. I don't even care who wins my event games. It's just, did everyone have fun?
Yeah. Absolutely. And we'll figure out prize support. We'll figure out all those different things. We got a couple months, I think.
You should let the prize support guy if you need some.
Yeah. If only we knew who those guys were. Oh, wait.
Right? The faceless minions behind the scenes.
Exactly. The faceless minions that hand us boxes of crap. But, you know, that's one of those things that I hate to always be the person that volunteers and, you know, as Casey and I are the first to say, what does Navy stand for? Never again volunteer yourself. It's one of those things where if people want someone to run a game, we're happy to do it. And kind of jumpstart this at Adepticon for people to play AI. So that should be fun, or it'll be an absolutely horrible time, and you can blame Casey and I for totally messing it up. All right, so there's one more event I wanted to make sure we talked about that Mike has said, you know, as we talked about the community and the community support and getting people to get face-to-face and meet each other, a, you know, hangout on the patio kind of night over in the historical section over at the Hyatt. What can you tell us about your cigar hangout to meet and greet?
So, and that was one of the big things we really wanted to do this year is I don't know what the community wants unless they tell me. Otherwise, I'm just going to provide what I want. So, and I've been trying to get as much feedback as I can. As I was going through Historicon, I was asking people, what would you like to see in a historical event? You know, it's a question.
An M8 Greyhound beer truck that runs around the historical venue.
Okay.
Instead of a cannon with a beer hose.
I saw something about Raytheon and Worldcon a few weeks back. I was like, can we get Raytheon as a sponsor for Adepticon?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
Can I get some nice military vehicles here?
Yeah, no shit. I'll just take, like, you know, static display missiles and things to hang up somewhere, you know?
It's like, that sounds great. But it's I want to hear back from people. And I feel we have an opportunity to build a good community here. And the best way to do that is to talk and hang out. So myself and Don, the commissar, you know, we love cigars. And we want to sit there and smoke cigars. The Hyatt has a really beautiful atrium. If you look on the page when we posted that review of the Hyatt, the one before that is a picture of us out there smoking a cigar. And they are incredibly open to this idea. So it's going to be Friday night, not 100% sure what time, and it's not going to be a ticketed event or anything. It's just going to be, hey, we're here hanging out, smoking some cigars. Come hang out with us.
That sounds like a terrible plan. It would be no fun, but
yeah,
that's awesome. No, that's good. Cause I think, you know, part of the beauty of having a split venue, and I always hate intentional separation like that. But part of the beauty is at least you have some like-minded historical gamers that have played a lot of the same games probably that can sit around and talk and get to know each other along with some of the game company folks that are going to be there. So I think that's a great idea. To have a little bit of a social attitude to it beyond just the face-smashing games, and then kind of going your separate ways. So that'll be good.
Exactly. And, you know, just be one of those events. We have a couple bars around the Hyatt. There's a cigar shop right across the street.
This sounds like a terrible plan.
Yeah.
This might not go well for us. Oh, no, that's good. So, let's talk a couple quick things. We've already talked about some of the vendors that are going to be there. Mm-hmm. We've already talked about some of the known demo games. Is there anything else on the historical side that you really want to call out? That's something that returning Adepticon players, regardless of what their genre is, should know is going to go on at the historical venue?
I think your Blood Red Skies demos are going to be fantastic for getting people into historical games, and I would definitely encourage people to try and play that if you have any interest in this. I think that's a great game to kind of dip your toes into historical gaming. David from the Wargaming Company just announced today that version 3 of his Essence Resultant rule set is going to be, I probably butchered the French there, is going to be released at Adepticon. COVID and everything pending. So,
yeah.
But he's a great guy. His reference books are insanely detailed. He's also hoping to have a miniature line released at the con too. So that's pretty exciting.
Excellent. That'll be cool.
I'll shout out one of my other games real quick. Since we were talking about naval games, I'm running a Warplan Orange, basically the pre-war American dreadnoughts versus all the Japanese battleships set in like 1940, 1941.
Cool.
You're using Naval
That would be
Thunder rules,
fun.
right?
So I was going to until Warlord released Victory at Sea, the version.
I mean, Naval Thunder are a fantastic set of rules too, so you can't go wrong.
No, I really liked it, and actually had the game ran in 2020 when I originally planned to do it, it would have used Naval Thunder.
Casey's crying in his beer now, so you heard
Oh,
his
the Victory at
feelings,
Sea
but
are
that's
great
all right.
rules too. I'm trying to make sure that I can play in this game.
You just
I'm
say that
looking at
because you're a
dates
raider.
seriously right
You've
now.
got dual loyalties.
So I have one of my complaints about historical gaming, and it's not a big complaint. I definitely understand why people do it. There is such a massive variety of rule sets.
Oh God, it's painful at times.
And my story is Historicon 2019. I played Art de la Guerre, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty good rule set. Hey, how do I buy this? And the guy was like, well, and it was a whole long story. I like a game, especially at a con like this, where you sit down and play for the first time. You want to go buy the rules, you can go walk to the vendor hall and buy the rules.
Right.
You know, my objective isn't to sell rules for them, it's to help you get into these games. If you have to go to a GeoCities website and order a PDF or something, that's a barrier to entry, and I want to try to remove that as much as possible to grow the hobby.
Yeah, that's absolutely understandable.
So, and I looked at Naval Thunder because that is a easy to acquire rule set, and then when Warlord picked up Victory at Sea, I was like, well, that's even easier.
Yeah,
And
well, and it's funny that sometimes we make it difficult on ourselves in the historical gaming community.
Mm-hmm.
that we have such mom and pop operations that people will demo a game. And you're like, and can I play it or can I buy it? Nope.
Nope, this is the only copy that exists. And
Exactly.
And the one nice thing about Victory at Sea is it is something you can learn very quick, play, and have a fun game.
Oh, Mike, we have so
Not
much
that I
to
would
talk
know
about
this
when
time.
I'm there.
Oh yeah, we're already getting beers on
Oh,
this
yeah.
one night, so.
Oh, you guys are nothing but trouble. Well, awesome. So we have spent way too long talking, but that's fine. It has been an absolute blast. Mike, any other things in closing? Any other kind of wrap-ups, other things that you want to make sure people know about to cover?
As you mentioned earlier, registration is January 11th. Make sure to kind of log on early if you can. So, example, I have my credit card saved in Google Chrome. That's I type in my CVV and it'll load. Little things like that will help process your stuff through. We do our best we can to try to make sure they work, but we use a service called CVEN, so we are at the whim of their servers and capacity.
Oh, yeah. Well, they've done well, big picture. I mean, when you look at how
Yeah.
many people are trying to log in simultaneously and make registrations, I think my counsel, not that I'm giving everyone my secrets, but I always go in and get my ticket and check out immediately and
Yes.
then hit what my priorities are. And that's if I'm competing for something like a VIG or something that is tied to the ticket. Otherwise, I will go in, get my ticket, get that one event that I absolutely have to play because it's either the linchpin to my schedule or it's the army that I've painted. There's a good joke, an army that Doug's painted. But I will click that one event, then I will check out, come back in, and then add the other things, the good to haves to my schedules. Because if everybody else sells out on those, then I'll survive.
I was actually just about to say that. That's been my secret too for many years.
That's the way I've done it, and it's it's a lesson learned the hard way the first time where I didn't get any of the events I wanted. Thankfully, everything I wanted to play was in the Horus Heresy 30K group, and they were like, just show up and just sign up, and they made tables, they made room for us, they'd plan for more players. So.
And that would be the next thing is if your event sold out, sign up for the wait list.
Absolutely,
We
sign
look
up
at
for the wait
those
list. Yep.
when we determine who gets more tables because everyone's going to come and say, well, I need 50 tables. Well, last year you sold 20 tables worth of people.
Yeah.
We're not going to give you 50, but if 30 people sign up, we'll give you more tables.
Exactly. And obviously it varies with the venue and the organization. They were kind of masters of their own destiny for Horus Heresy because they had so much room set aside. So it was easy for them to shuffle around and work with the terrain and the setup to make the kind of team matchups they wanted to. But what I tell people is, don't worry, sign up on the wait list. If there's either a Facebook group for that part of Adepticon, or you can find the contact information for the people there, contact them as well and go, hey, I really want to play. I'm on the wait list. Everyone's going to build their little kind of mini community as we get close to Adepticon. So as people are in Facebook groups sharing the armies they've painted up, sharing what some of their thoughts are about what they'd like to do in the coming games, asking questions. Once again, there's no dumb questions. There's only pilots with pilot wings. There's my pilot joke for the night. But feel free to ask questions and to find out what's going on and to try to not feel like you're shut out because you just didn't get that ticket right at the beginning.
No,
go in, buy your regular Adepticon ticket, and then make your reservations as you can.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing is if your event is sold out, try something new.
Yeah. And that's actually been good for me a couple times, that I've not been able to get into the other event I wanted to. A couple times we've had where we thought we were going to do doubles events, things like that. It just didn't line up. So it freed up time for me to go to the vendor hall instead, or to go try other games and play something else. So it's always a good plan.
And we have a full board game archive. Like there's random pickup games throughout the con.
Well, and that's the thing that I guess I always try to tell people is that even if you at the last minute changed your schedule, at least for the way it was previously set up, for me being a sci-fi kind of gamer, I could walk up into the pickup hall right outside where all the superhero games were, and I could find everything from people playing Infinity, people playing Space Hulk. There were some historical games. There was a couple naval games that were being played up there. So there was always stuff to go do. You just... I realize as gamers we're used to hiding in our basement and painting our little figures. But just walk up and talk to people about it and ask what they're playing, or, hey, when's the next Space Hulk game going to be, and sign up for that and do that.
Never had a negative interaction with someone at the worst interaction I could think of would be a neutral interaction with another player.
Brett, have you ever had a negative interaction with anyone at Adepticon?
Never happened. Nope.
I'm going to laugh at you. Nope.
Yeah.
Casey?
No, not at all. And it's funny you say that. Like, I've met so many friends I've never seen since then, and probably talked to a couple times a week, but I only met there, never seen them again, like, in person, and just made, all these friends.
Oh, yeah. I laugh because there's people I have literally nothing in common with that I am Facebook friends with because we played on opposite sides of the Zone Mortalis table in 30K.
Yeah.
And they're good people. They're absolutely very different than me, but we also have a common hobby that we enjoy pushing old plastic space marines around.
There's I want to say kid, but I don't really know how old he is, and it makes me sound ancient. But this gentleman I just met, he wants to run a couple historical games, and it turns out we like the same book series. It's an obscure one, and I was shocked that someone else had read it, let alone wanted to run a game based on it.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the thing where I tell people, don't be afraid to talk to the other gamers, to interact with the other gamers, as much as we joke about some of the people that we've met at Adepticon, because there are some unique individuals that will be there, kind of like us. But the fact is, you also learn a lot from them. And while we make fun of certain people and their beliefs about when the plastic Thunderhawks were going to come out for 40K, those were the same people that were giving me great feedback on what terrain I wanted to use if I was going to play anything, superhero, Art Deco kind of terrain, New York City kind of stuff. There were some really cool discussions we had. So it's always a good time.
The plastic Thunderhawk did came out.
You just much smaller. I just need to upscale it. I've been trying to dodge. I've been very fortunate. Every time I walk into the Warhammer store here in Huntsville, he's sold out, and he's literally sold it like the day prior or even the hour prior to me being in there. So it's been wonderful.
The game room's been out of that too, and I keep going in. They're like, "Oh, they have the Thunderhawk yet?" Nope.
Yeah, and the guy looks at me and goes, you can order one. I'm like, that would take the adventure out of this. I'm just going to walk in and hope that one's sitting on the shelf. That's all right.
Exactly.
Well, Brett, Casey, any closing comments, spears, or tough questions?
I'm really looking forward to getting registered and maybe picking up a painting class or two and playing some games.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, exact same. I've been sitting here looking at the event list the whole time we've been talking. I'm like, God, do I need to show up a day earlier? Like, oh, man.
So that's already my problem. Is I'm already like, did Brett and I set up our same schedule as last time, and now that isn't valid
That's
anymore.
why I just
All of a
asked
sudden,
you. I
like,
was like,
man,
well, I think I'm going to show up a
maybe
day
I should
early. Sorry, nerds.
Well, I laughed that you sent me that text. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, maybe I've screwed this up. Maybe I need more time to do Adepticon.
I go Monday to Monday now.
Oh God, I could do that. I could get away with it. I've got the paid time off, but yeah, I don't know, Brett. We may have to reevaluate our Adepticon plan.
I will say I do recommend for a lot of people if you can come in when early Wednesday is nice because that way at least you have that day to sort of prep and get ready before the con. Tuesday's even better, but even just coming in Wednesday is fantastic.
Yeah. Brett, we may need to rethink this plan, or show up on our own on different timelines. Well, anyway. Guys, I really appreciate it. And Mike, I appreciate your time and coming on the podcast to talk about the historical side of Adepticon and what's going to go on this year. We're super excited to be there. We're really happy and really thankful that you guys have embraced what we want to do with Blood Red Skies and get some events going on out there. And we're just excited to kind of do this as yet another event to build the community for Blood Red Skies and for Warlord Games to do some fun stuff and to do historicals without arguing about what the correct shade of Prussian blue is.
Right. No, I'm entirely with you. And as much as I joke about that, I've messed up the shade a few times myself. So
That's all right.
I use contrast paints to paint some of that now.
Oh my God, you heathen, you heretic.
But I really appreciate you guys having me on. This is actually the first podcast I've ever been on. So this was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate
That's
it.
awesome. We're glad to get a chance to pop your podcast cherry. So
And I'm going to be on the Flames of War competitive podcast, Battle Reports, I believe, on
nice
Wednesday. And I
cool.
played Joe Lewis a few times in tournaments, so that'll be fun. I am
Awesome.
0-3.
Well, we're glad that you took the time to share some of the stuff with us. So if there's any changes, once again, do not blame us. Things are going to change between now and when Adepticon opens the doors. So go out there, go to the website. It's got the entire event list there for Adepticon. You can see what's available. Things will change, but sign up for some games and play.
And we'll do our best to keep everyone updated through the Facebook and social media as well. So
you guys have been awesome about that. So, well, everybody that's listening, please go out there and leave us some comments. Leave us some likes, a couple of reviews on iTunes or Google or any of the other podcast venues would help. But most importantly, make sure that you let us know what you want us to cover in the podcast. Make sure you let us know what kind of games you want us to run. Especially when it comes down to the narrative side. So I know that a lot of our friends out there, Steve Gusky and others, have got their plans going for the next series of Gathering of Eagles kind of events and what kind of narrative games they can run. So let us know what your thoughts are. I will not paint any miniatures for it. That's someone else's job. Nor will I print any. That's also someone else's job. But we'll do our best to make sure that there's the kind of event you want to attend so we can hang out and play some more Blood Red Skies games. So some random other bullshitting while we're waiting on our ranger who's not prompt. Hey, there we go. Now that I made fun of him, he shows up.
Hey,
Missed your TOT over the drop zone.
I don't
once
feel
again.
tardy.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm right on time. You guys are just early. Okay.